Whispers in the dark. The rain fell in slow, steady waves, coating the city streets in a silver sheen. Ryan Hale leaned against his desk, staring at the blinking cursor on his laptop. Another deadline missed. Another story unfinished. He had built his career on chasing the stories no one else dared to tell, the forgotten ones, the strange ones, the ones that made people question reality. But lately, his leads had dried up, his editor had lost patience, and worst of all, he had nothing left to say. Until the email arrived. Subject, Blackwood. Sender, unknown. Ryan clicked. The message was short. People are vanishing. No one remembers them. No one will listen. Please come before it's too late. Attached was a photograph, a boy, maybe 15, staring directly at the camera. Scribbled across the bottom in shaky handwriting. Remember me. Ryan frowned. It was probably a hoax. A desperate attempt for attention. But something in the boy's eyes, the absolute terror, made his stomach twist. Against his better judgment, he replied. Who are you? A response came almost instantly. Caleb Rivers. I need your help. The road to Blackwood. Blackwood was a town that barely existed. It wasn't on most maps. It had no major landmarks, no famous history. Just another forgotten town in the middle of nowhere. Ryan's GPS led him through endless backroads, the trees growing thicker, the sky darker. Something about the air felt off, as if the world here was thinner, stretched at the seams. When he finally arrived, Blackwood was quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The wrong kind. The kind where the streets were too empty, where the houses looked lived in but lifeless. Where people glanced at him, then looked away too quickly. He parked outside Marlowe's diner, the only place still open. Inside, the atmosphere wasn't much better. The few patrons sat in silence, staring at their plates. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a faded name tag that read Lena, approached. You're not from around here, her voice was cautious. Ryan shook his head. I'm looking for Caleb Rivers. The diner went silent. Lena's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. You shouldn't be asking about him. Ryan frowned. Why not? Lena glanced around, then muttered, because Caleb Rivers doesn't exist. The journal. Lena was the only one who would talk to him. She led him to the back of the diner, speaking in hushed tones. People disappear here, Ryan. Not just physically. They're erased. Ryan didn't understand. What do you mean, erased? Lena slid a small leather-bound journal across the table. Caleb's. He gave it to me before he was gone. Ryan flipped through the pages. Frantic, desperate handwriting. Notes, warnings. One sentence was underlined over and over again. They are coming. And no one will listen. Ryan swallowed hard. Who's coming? Lena's voice was barely a whisper. The hollow man. The diner lights flickered. Outside, the streetlights dimmed, their glow swallowed by the dark. Ryan turned to the window, and saw a shadow standing across the street. Motionless. Watching. His blood turned to ice. Because even in the dim light, even through the rain, he could see one thing clearly. The shadow had no face. The town that forgot. Ryan's breath hitched as he stared through the rain-streaked window. The shadow remained still, featureless, yet impossibly aware. Lena's grip on his wrist tightened. Don't look at it. Ryan forced his gaze away, pulse hammering. What the hell is that? She swallowed hard. If you see it, it sees you. The lights inside the diner flickered again. Outside, the rain intensified, tapping against the glass like fingers. When Ryan finally dared to glance back, the shadow was gone. But the dread in his gut remained. "We need to leave," Lena muttered, already pulling him toward the back door. "Where are we going?" She hesitated. "Somewhere safe. And somewhere they don't want you to see. Memories that fade." They hurried through the rain, cutting through empty alleys and side streets. The town of Blackwood felt more like a graveyard than a place people actually lived. As they walked, Ryan noticed something odd: the town was too perfect. Houses lined the streets in identical rows. Every mailbox stood at the exact same height. Even the cracks in the pavement looked copied and pasted. "This place feels wrong," Ryan murmured. Lena shot him a sharp look. "You're starting to notice, aren't you?" "Notice what?" "That Blackwood isn't real." Ryan stopped walking. "What?" Lena exhaled. "People don't just disappear here, Ryan. They get rewritten. Forgotten. Changed. Have you noticed how no one questions anything?" Ryan thought back to the diner, the way everyone stared at their food like they weren't really there. The way they ignored him when he asked about Caleb. His stomach twisted. "What's causing it?" Lena hesitated. "The hollow man." "What is he?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "A hole where something should be." Before Ryan could press her for more, something shifted around them. A man stood on the sidewalk nearby, looking lost. He was middle-aged, wearing a soaked jacket and mismatched shoes. His hands trembled as he turned in circles, mumbling under his breath. "Sir," Ryan called. The man's head snapped up, his expression a mixture of relief and panic. "You can see me?" Ryan frowned. "Of course, I can." "Oh, thank God," the man stumbled forward. "Please, you have to help me. I think I'm forgetting something. I don't remember how I got here. I don't remember my name." Ryan felt a chill. "Your name?" The man's eyes widened in terror. "I don't remember my name." Lena grabbed Ryan's arm. "We have to go. Now." But Ryan held his ground. "We can't just leave him." The man staggered back suddenly, eyes darting to the street behind them. "No," his voice was barely a breath. "He's coming." Ryan turned, but the street was empty. When he looked back at the man, he was gone. Not just missing. Not just out of sight. Gone. Like he had never existed. The forgotten faces. Ryan's hands trembled as they reached the town's library, an old brick building that looked untouched by time. "What the hell just happened back there?" Ryan demanded. Lena pulled open the heavy doors. He was erased. Ryan followed her inside, his mind spinning. How? Why? She turned to him, eyes dark. Because no one remembered him. And when no one remembers you in Blackwood, you stop existing. The air inside the library smelled of dust and ink. The lights overhead buzzed faintly. It was completely empty, save for the books lining the shelves, most of them untouched. Lena led Ryan toward a locked door at the back. She pulled a key from her pocket, hands shaking as she unlocked it. The door creaked open, revealing a hidden archive. Hundreds of photographs lined the walls, pinned in uneven rows. Each one was labeled with a name, but the ink had begun to fade. Ryan stepped closer, his breath catching. The people in the photos had no faces. The truth buried beneath Blackwood. Lena picked up a newspaper clipping from a nearby table, handing it to Ryan. The headline was blurred, as if reality itself was erasing it. Missing persons surge in Blackwood, officials deny any pattern. Ryan skimmed the article, his heart pounding. Dozens of people had vanished from Blackwood over the years, yet the town continued on as if nothing had happened. And then, at the bottom of the article, a single sentence made his blood run cold. Authorities state that Caleb Rivers was never a resident of Blackwood. Ryan clenched his jaw. But that's a lie. I have his journal. Lena nodded. You're starting to understand. Understand what? She gestured around the archive. Blackwood isn't just forgetting people. It's rewriting itself. Changing history to erase the ones who disappear. Ryan's pulse quickened. Who's doing it? Lena hesitated. The Hollow Man. The name sent a shiver down Ryan's spine. What is he? Lena exhaled. A story. A myth. But also, something real. Ryan frowned. You're saying he's both? Lena glanced toward the faded photographs. He exists because people believe in him. And when you believe in him, he can see you. A sharp gust of wind rattled the library's windows. Ryan tensed. Did you hear that? Lena's face paled. We have to leave. Now. She turned to the door, but it slammed shut on its own. The lights overhead flickered, casting long, shifting shadows across the room. Ryan's breath caught. One of the shadows was moving. Not like the others. Not natural. It stretched and twisted, peeling itself from the wall, forming into something tall and wrong. Lena grabbed Ryan's hand. Don't look at it. But it was too late. The Hollow Man had seen him. The Hollow Man's bargain. The library's air turned thick, suffocating, as the Hollow Man's form solidified from the shadows. Ryan wanted to run, every muscle in his body screamed for it, but he couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The figure stood impossibly tall, its limbs stretched just a little too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. There was no face. Only a smooth, featureless void where one should be. Lena's grip on his wrist was tight enough to bruise. Ryan, listen to me. His pulse pounded in his ears, don't answer him. But the Hollow Man didn't speak, not with words. It was inside his mind, I know what you seek. Ryan gasped, his vision blurring, you want the truth. The voice was a whisper, slithering through his thoughts like a snake, I can give it to you. The offer. Ryan fought to think clearly, you erased them. The Hollow Man's head twitched, its body shifting like smoke, they erased themselves. No, Ryan growled, taking a step forward, you're lying. You made them disappear. The void where its face should be seemed to ripple, warping like ink in water, I only take what is forgotten. If no one remembers them, they were never real. Ryan's stomach twisted. That's not how it works. Isn't it? The words hit deep, curling around his thoughts like a trap. How many times had he walked past someone without acknowledging them? How many names had he forgotten over the years? Was forgetting the same as erasing? Lena yanked him back sharply. Don't listen to him. The Hollow Man turned toward her. Lena. Her breath hitched. You were forgotten once, too. Ryan's gaze snapped to her. What is he talking about? Lena shook her head. He lies. But the Hollow Man remained still, waiting. Ask her how she survived. The survivor. Lena's grip tightened on Ryan's arm, and for the first time, he noticed the faint scars along her wrists, jagged, like scratches from something desperate. We have to go. Her voice wavered. But Ryan pulled away. Lena, tell me the truth. Her jaw clenched. You don't understand, Ryan. If you ask questions, he latches onto you. Ryan shook his head. You were forgotten, weren't you? She swallowed hard. The Hollow Man shifted closer, and Ryan swore he could feel cold fingers ghosting along his skin. She was almost mine. Lena's breathing turned ragged. Stop. No one remembered her. I said stop. Except for one person. Ryan's chest tightened. Who? Lena turned away. My brother. Ryan stared at her. Caleb. The journal's secret. Ryan fumbled for the journal in his jacket, flipping through the pages. Caleb's notes, his fears, his desperate pleas, all of them were real. He wrote about you. Lena closed her eyes. I told him not to. But he did. And that's why you're still here. The hollow man shifted, the air crackling with something unseen. He remembered you. Lena exhaled shakily. And when you remember someone, they don't disappear. Ryan's mind raced. If Caleb had saved Lena by writing about her, then maybe that was the answer. Maybe that was how they could fight back. But before he could say anything, the hollow man moved. Fast. The price of remembering. The shadows around them surged forward, tendrils wrapping around Ryan's ankles. He gasped, struggling against the pull. You remember too much. The voice slithered through his thoughts like a blade. You should have forgotten. Ryan dug his nails into the floor, his breath coming in ragged gasps. I won't forget. The hollow man loomed over him, faceless, endless, hungry. Then you will take their place. Lena grabbed Ryan's hand. No. The hollow man hesitated. Her voice trembled, take me instead. Ryan's heart stopped, Lena. I was supposed to be gone anyway. The hollow man tilted its head, as if considering. A fair trade. The shadows shifted, reaching for her. Ryan had only seconds to make a choice. But he knew one thing. If he let her go, she would be forgotten forever. And this time, no one would be left to remember. The cost of a memory. Ryan's mind screamed at him to stop this. To do something, anything, before Lena was lost forever. The hollow man's shadows curled around her wrists like black smoke, pulling her away from him. A fair trade. The hollow man's voice slithered through the air, curling into Ryan's thoughts. One forgotten soul for another. Lena didn't struggle. She just looked at Ryan, eyes calm despite everything. You have to let me go. No, Ryan shouted, yanking at her arm. You don't get to make this choice. Her lips twitched in a sad smile. You don't understand. I was supposed to disappear a long time ago. The only reason I'm here is because Caleb fought to remember me. But he's gone now. There's no one left to. I remember you. The words shot out of Ryan before he even processed them. Lena froze. The hollow man paused, as if considering his words. Ryan clenched his fists, his heart hammering. I remember everything, Lena. The way you found me. The way you dragged me through this nightmare. I remember the diner, the rain, the man who vanished right in front of us. He tightened his grip on her wrist, refusing to let go. If Caleb saved you by remembering you, then I'll do the same. The hollow man shifted. The air rippled around them, the walls of the library groaning like they were protesting. The tendrils of shadow around Lena's wrists wavered, uncertain. Ryan took a shaky breath and kept talking. You told me not to ask questions. But I did. You told me not to look. But I did. And now, I see the truth. His voice hardened. You don't erase people, do you? The hollow man didn't respond. Ryan took a step forward. You just make people forget. Rewriting reality. The library's lights flickered wildly. Books tumbled from the shelves, their pages curling and blackening as the air filled with the scent of burning paper. The hollow man's form trembled. To be forgotten is to be erased. No, Ryan countered. It just means no one remembers you. But that's not the same thing. He gritted his teeth, his entire body thrumming with adrenaline. You take what people allow themselves to forget. That's why you erase names from the newspapers. Why no one questions the disappearances. Ryan's hands trembled, but he didn't stop. But if someone remembers, truly remembers, then they can't disappear. The hollow man shuddered. For the first time, it looked afraid. Fighting back. Lena's breath came in sharp gasps as she stared at Ryan. What are you doing? Ryan swallowed hard. Fighting him the only way we can. His mind raced. Memories were the key. Forgetting let the hollow man take people. Remembering kept them real. So he did the only thing that made sense. He forced himself to remember. Caleb Rivers was real. The hollow man flinched. Ryan's voice grew stronger. The man we met in the street, he had a name. We just didn't ask what it was. But he was real too. The hollow man's form rippled, distorting. The shadows recoiled from Lena, hissing like something alive. Ryan turned to her. Tell me something you remember about Caleb. Anything. Lena hesitated. Then, quietly, he used to hum when he was thinking. The hollow man staggered. Ryan pressed forward. What else? He hated the cold. Always wore an extra jacket, even when it was warm. The hollow man let out a sound, a hollow, warped noise, like wind howling through an empty tunnel. The walls of the library began to crack. It was working. The breaking point. The hollow man lashed out. Shadows surged toward Ryan, wrapping around his throat like icy fingers. He choked, his vision darkening at the edges. But he kept remembering, the diner. The rain. The people sitting too still. His voice was hoarse, but he forced the words out. Blackwood isn't real. A violent tremor tore through the air. The hollow man screamed. Its faceless void cracked, fractures splitting across its smooth surface like shattered glass. Ryan shouted through the pain, you don't control reality. People do. The shadows twisted violently, unraveling like smoke caught in the wind. Ryan barely had time to brace himself before everything exploded outward. The world resets. He hit the ground hard. When he opened his eyes, he was lying outside. The rain was gone. The sky was clear. He gasped, sitting up. He was on the sidewalk, in front of the diner. Except, it looked different. Brighter. More alive. People walked by, talking, laughing. Like nothing had ever happened. His breath caught. Had it worked? A familiar voice beside him. Ryan? He turned. Lena. She was still here. Her eyes were wide, disbelief written all over her face. We survived, she whispered. Ryan exhaled shakily, nodding. I think so. He glanced around. No flickering lights. No eerie silence. No unnatural shadows. The town felt real again. But then he noticed something that made his chest tighten. The journal was gone. And Caleb's name was already fading from his memory. The price of remembering. The moment Ryan realized Caleb's name was fading, panic seized his chest. He clutched at his head, trying to hold on to the memories, but they were slipping, like water through his fingers. No, no, no. He forced himself to think. To remember the way Caleb hummed when he was deep in thought. The extra jacket he always wore. The way his handwriting slanted slightly to the right. But the details were blurring. Lena, we have to write it down, Ryan turned to her, desperate. Before we forget. But the look in her eyes stopped him cold. She was already forgetting. Her brows furrowed in confusion. Who are we talking about? Caleb, Ryan grabbed her shoulders, shaking her lightly. Your brother. The one who saved you. The one who. But even as the words left his mouth, they felt hollow. Like he was speaking about someone he had read in a book rather than someone he had known. Lena's face was blank. Ryan, I don't have a brother. His heart plummeted. The hollow man hadn't erased them. It had erased itself. And everything it had taken, including Caleb, was vanishing with it. The final pieces disappear. Ryan refused to accept it. He scrambled into his backpack, searching for something, anything, to write with. His fingers closed around a pen, and he tore a napkin from the diner's outdoor seating. He wrote as fast as he could. Caleb Rivers. Hummed when thinking. Hated the cold. Saved Lena. Tried to warn us. But with each word, his hand trembled more. The ink smudged. His grip loosened. He blinked, just for a second. And when he looked down again, the napkin was blank. His breath caught. He tried again, pressing the pen harder, but nothing appeared. It was like the universe itself was erasing Caleb from existence. "This isn't fair," he whispered. But the world didn't care. What remains? Lena was watching him, concern creasing her brow. "Ryan, are you okay?" He looked at her, swallowing hard. Should he tell her? But what good would it do? She would just forget again. He would forget again. And what was worse, he was already forgetting why he was sad. Something felt wrong. Something felt missing. But the harder he tried to grasp it, the further it slipped away. Like a dream dissolving in the morning light. So Ryan forced a smile. "Yeah. I'm okay." Lena still looked unsure, but she nodded. "Good. Let's get out of here." They left the diner. The town was normal. People bustled around them, cars honked in the distance, laughter rang from a nearby cafe. It was like none of it had ever happened. Except Ryan knew, deep down, something had. Even if he couldn't remember what. The last trace. That night, Ryan sat at his desk, staring at a single page in his notebook. It had one sentence on it. Written in his own handwriting. "Someone is missing." He didn't know why he had written it. But something in his gut told him never to erase it. So he didn't. Instead, he closed the notebook, slid it into his drawer, and locked it. And even though he would forget everything else, he would always remember that he had forgotten.